Greetings, gaming enthusiasts. Today I'm going to walk you through my beginner process for Stoneshard. It was highly requested, and by that I mean one person requested it, another guy asked for a playthrough. I just wanted to do an edited video just to give some tips and tricks that could help you through the beginning of the game. Prepare to journey into a world where geomancy and pyromancy exist, but players consider it unrealistic to have unarmed combat. Now, I'm not sure if they toned down the prologue, but I did fire up the game on a laptop with no save data, and it seems like you can skip it and just start a new adventure. I'm gonna go on the assumption you're either doing that or you've beaten the prologue and you're like, wow, what do I do now? So the game starts off with you as a hooded figure in a tavern and Grandpa Varen explaining he had a very bad day.
I'm too old for this shit.
So at this point, you can choose a character. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to be playing as, I think, my personal favorite, Arna. I think you can make any of the starting player characters work and fill any role, but personally, I play Arna and Derwin the most. Derwin is basically a hunter archetype. He can be pretty nasty with a ranged weapon and daggers. Or really anything, he just has good accuracy. Arna is sort of your typical lawful stupid paladin Giga Chad, and from Total War Warhammer 2, I mean, I'm just completely addicted to my maiden knights. So once you pick your character, Varen will be like, oh, go talk to the mayor. At this point, you're pretty much free to do as you please, but if you open up your skill menu by pressing S, you'll see that you have 2 points to spend. It is at this point you pretty much need to decide your build. It doesn't need to be for the entire playthrough, but at least starting off. I do recommend getting aim if you're planning on using a crossbow or a bow or something like that. I'm not sure if it works with throwing daggers, but for any of the melee skill trees, it might be worthwhile to look at combat mastery skills or athletics. In my first iteration of this video, I was like, let's see how we can do with only the combat mastery abilities, and it seems like Battle Cry and Seize the Initiative seem like pretty solid attacks. The utility is endless. However, in some cases, if you're really feeling it, you can pick a weapon and just dump both points in that tree. For my Derwin start, I took a point of aim and then a point in the dagger skill tree to get the skill that basically makes it so you can swap loadouts without wasting a turn. By the way, by pressing W, you activate your second loadout, and if you're not using it, like you're only using one weapon, then that's 2 slots you can store items in. That's the more you know. So after you figure out what kind of weapons, magic, or kicks you want to be using, you should start off by heading to the mayor's house to have a chat with the guard on the first floor who offers you 1 free weapon. Now, we're not going to accept a contract from the mayor yet because I feel like this is a beginner's trap. It's a lot more reliable to get some extra gear, raise a bit of money, and level yourself up to level 2 before we actually take a contract, so let's do that. For the purpose of this video, I decided Arna with 2-handed maces would be an interesting start, and he just gave me a literal hunk of wood, so already off to a promising start. In the Stoneshard world, foreign concepts like right to repair don't exist. No, all the merchants are firmly in the Apple ecosystem, so to get our gear repaired, we're gonna have to go to the merchants around Osbrook. In my case, I'm looking to see if I can repair Arna's cuirass. Underneath the blacksmith's icon, there should be a little hammer button that allows you to check if he can repair it, which, no, we can't afford that. This creates a bit of a side quest as all of the character's special gear is pretty powerful for the early game once you get it all repaired up. The blacksmith offers a quest in which he asks you to collect 3 cleavers or falchions, low-level items that bandits drop. The herbalist Frid has a quest where he asks for a bunch of herbs. It may be difficult to tell what are herbs that you can actually pick up, but I just look for little flower sprites and then hover your mouse over them and see if you can actually pick them up. Gathering herbs is a good way to make money in the early game, and as a added bonus, Frid actually doesn't go to bed. You can walk inside of his house and sell them to him at all hours. You'll notice that some sell for a lot more than others. It's kind of just one of those things you get used to over time. If Bran the Hunter is there, I recommend trying to get caltraps or a bear trap from him. I wish he'd spawn those in my playthroughs. Caltraps are a useful deterrent. They're reasonably cheap considering they can save your life. If you want, you can look for some rumors to see if there are any interesting objects close to town. You can also pester Varen to get a ring. Then in the tavern, go upstairs and sleep for an hour to save your game. We're about to set out and harvest some juicy XP. Other than that, the basic strategy is pretty simple. We are going to aggressively patrol the outer perimeter of town and look for stuff to give us XP so we can progress to level 2. Now, unfortunately, the creatures we encounter won't give us XP. It needs to be taken by force. Also, the added bonus, by staying close to town, if you find something that you can't possibly beat, like a bear, a moose, or a really angry pig, you can just sprint back to town. Unless you're really unlucky, then you're probably gonna have to reload a save. Now, ideally when we do encounter enemies, we're going to try and fight them one at a time. It is also possible with favorable line of sight to trigger one enemy while the rest of them are just completely unaware. Also, although you can heal by just eating food and resting while the area is secure, don't feel afraid to use your medicine that comes in your inventory. If you want to use food to heal, eat a nourishing food when your hunger is close to 0%. But after you get the satiated effect, aka the pig in the middle of the screen, don't eat any more food, you'll just vomit, so don't do it. I recommend always having at least 2 bandage usages on you at all times. The reason I say this is because one time I had a single bandage charge and then a wolf mauled both of my legs, causing me to bleed out before I could even make it back to town. Realistically, you want to fight the human bandits as they're pretty weak at this stage in the game, but with a build like mine, since I'm using a blunt weapon, I can actually skin the wolves for pelts. You're going to want to make sure you have a sword or dagger in your second inventory so you can skin pelts if you manage to kill an animal. Or find a dead animal, sometimes they just hunt each other, I don't know. If you get something like a wolf pelt, they can be sold to the tailor for a decent amount of money. Even if you feel like carrying a knife isn't useful, they are because you can throw them. And from what I've seen, it seems like wolves have a very low chance to dodge a dagger or whatever sorcery is protecting bandits whenever I throw stuff at them. It's not enough to completely turn a fight, but it still can be handy in a pinch, and it can give you that little edge you need. Although it also is RNG, and they cost a bit of money if you don't go and pick them back up. Keep in mind throwing daggers will also lose durability when you do this. I'm gonna be completely honest with you, you're just kind of better off fighting bandits in the beginning. They have pretty pathetic items, and wolves are sort of RNG, where sometimes they'll completely maul you and sometimes it'll be ridiculously easy. I guess it's a matter of whether or not you fumble or crit them or whatever. Pro tip, you can store any quest items like the falchions or cleavers or herbs in the chest in the inn, even if you haven't paid for it. If you ever get to a point where you're worried about dying, I recommend just heading back to town and giving yourself a good rest. That allows you to save the game and any progress you've made. It also allows you to recoup and potentially buy stuff from some of the merchants to upgrade yourself. If you see a good pair of gloves from the tailor, buy them. If you see some copper bling that catches your eye, go ahead. The main concern is making sure you have enough money for food, and of course saves at the inn. I did nab the occasional wolves or just random wild animals that I assume were mauled by wolves, but I also died to them too. So it took me approximately an hour real time to actually get to level 2, but I do think it's highly worth it just to upgrade your gear that little bit and give you an edge in the early game. I don't want to be a downer, but dying is a huge part of this game, and dying close to Osbrick, a square away from the inn, is a lot different than dying in your first dungeon and having to walk your entire way back there. It's just like I always say in Stoneshard, CIK, cowardice is key. Make sure to pick as many herbs and berries as possible. Not only are these a good source of nutrients, but they also sell for a little bit in town. Also, some of the herbs have very beneficial properties for the cost of thirst. Just in case if you're like me. The beautiful little brainlet I was when I first started playing Stoneshard, you can actually fill up the water skins at the wells in town. You don't actually need to keep paying the innkeeper. And generally, 2 water skins is more than enough for all but the longest of dungeons. Keep in mind as well, since you don't have any reputation in this town, you want to get as much as you can by selling things, so you want to sell wooden weapons to the carpenter, sell iron stuff to the blacksmith, etc, etc. Eventually you'll be looking at level 2. With the changes they made to the stat system, it makes a lot more sense to dump into one stat that your character favors, because there's a tier reward at every 5 points, so 15. By the time you have hit level 2, you should have some time to repair your gear, buy new gear, and talk to the mayor about that quest, make a quick save at the inn, and then you'll be off on your way in your Stoneshard adventure. Walking sim extraordinaire. I actually had the extreme misfortune of losing my voice for the entire last week, so that kind of delayed this video, but be sure to leave any comments, like if you liked the video, and if you have any suggestions for future Warhammer, Stoneshard, or Garfield Cart content, be sure to leave them down there. To be continued.